Welcome, everybody, to the second episode of Past Quirks, where I actually get to catch up with
Kathleen Carl Whittingslow Harston,
the guy who runs Roman Tours. Hello there.
Hello, how are you doing?
Oh, fine, thank you. How are you doing?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. Weather's a bit,
Well,
but okay.
yeah, well, it's that time, isn't it, I suppose? Yeah.
It is that time of year. Spring is in full effect.
Lovely to meet you. Thank you very much.
Pleasure to meet you, Tom. Thank you for having me.
I just wanted to ask you a few questions, if I may, please. It's nice to hear, obviously, you keep him busy and stuff. I mean, I'd go a bit doolally if I didn't have projects on myself. So, yeah. I was wondering, actually, if you can tell me a few more bits, please, about Roman Tours. So, for instance, when and what made you want to become a Roman tour guide, just for anyone who obviously doesn't know about it.
Okay. So what made me want to become a Roman tour guide is that this is actually a family business started by my father 23 years ago. And what got me interested was growing up, he used to sometimes take me on the tours and I used to sit down and watch. And when the tours ended, we would go off to a restaurant or somewhere in Chester to get some food. And one day we were sitting down and this guy came in. And my dad is still in all his Roman kit as we're eating. And he comes in and he goes, I remember you. You did a tour for me when I was 13 years old. And gets out his phone. And on his phone is this photo of him. And standing next to him is my dad. In Roman kit. And he kept this photo. And he said it was one of the best tours that he ever been on. And so I saw that impact that he had on this man's life and how he kept hold of that photo. And I went, I want to be part of that. I want to do that. I want to make history fun and interesting. I want people to remember having that experience. And so that's what got me into Roman Tours.
Wow, that does sound good. Wow. So when you were growing up, then did you have a sort of sort of if you was quite an avid reader as a kid or not? I mean, I used to hate books personally, but I personally very much got into horrible histories, and that kind of got me into it to start with. Did you have a favourite author or book yourself?
Well, growing up, actually, I had two favourite books. One of them was The Hobbit, Tolkien.
Oh, fantastic book.
And another one, because I'm dyslexic, you see, one that got me into actually reading and helped me to read and increase my vocabulary was Raymond D. Feist's magician book called Magician. And that actually helped me to get into reading more. Once my reading picked up, I then got into a lot of the history books. So like the Osborne history books, Osprey's Men-at-Arms series, and picking bits up from there. So yeah, but start of it was Tolkien and Magician, really.
I have to check out the Magician book, actually. I remember reading Tolkien when I was about 12 and being blown away by it. I mean, Lord of the Rings is a bit more heavy duty, but yeah, The Hobbit's a good starter, isn't it? Absolutely.
It's definitely a good start for a young person, yeah. To be perfectly honest with you, I would say it challenges Tolkien. It's a definite challenge, man. It's a really good book. It's a book that when you finish, you go, I want to read more.
Okay, I'll definitely have to check it out. No, thank you for that. Thanks for the recommendation.
Nice.
So how would you describe then the sort of work you do for people who haven't heard of Roman Tours? Someone was to mention, if you used to mention Roman Tours, they didn't know what it was. How would you sort of go about explaining it all?
Roman Tours is basically a company that provides education and tourism for the city of Chester and UK-wide for schools. So it started off education. So schools would come into Chester and we would teach the history of Roman Chester. And that's essentially what Roman Tours is. It's a teaching but tourism business. Once business started getting going, more schools were wanting to book on because of our quality and how we present. We started getting more people interested in what we're doing, so we got more staff. So then we opened up into the tourism market, started doing public tours, and now you can look us on TripAdvisor, where we are at the moment, due to how TripAdvisor class and how they rate things, we're number 2 in Chester for tourism and attraction. Something we're very proud of and something that our staff have worked very hard towards. And if you go on there, you'll see that, we have mostly 4 or 5 stars. Once we got these things started, we then opened up into other areas. So we started doing private tours. We then started doing weddings. Believe it or not, honestly, started hearing what we were doing, like the tourism and the schools. You start getting some odd requests, like, could you, turn up to the wedding and be like an honor guard for the bride, sort of thing.
That's amazing. Wow.
So we get asked to do quite a lot of things, in fairness. Meet and greets, meeting people out of conferences, standing on the doors, a nice welcome for people. We get asked to do loads of jobs, in fairness.
So why pick Chester then, out of interest, as a town? I mean, obviously there's places like, there's St Albans and there's York and places like that. So why Chester?
It was the closest place to us, in fairness. And like you said, there's loads of historic cities and towns across the UK that have Roman links. But for us, Chester was the closest to where we live. And Chester, in fairness, has great history. It was the mega fortress of the United Kingdom. It has the largest military fortress in the United Kingdom. The only ones that come close to it are Eboracum, which is York, Isca, Caerleon. But Chester's famous as well for potentially being maybe the capital of Roman Britain from 75 AD up until, some say, the 3rd century AD. But a lot of people are now saying it was the military capital in the 1st or 2nd century AD for Roman Britain. So it's a major point. And so it gives us a great opportunity to talk about this great fortress.
So even more so than London then?
Even more so than London. London in this time period for Romans is a small sort of trading town. London's not actually as important as Chester, and set up, as some people say, as, like I said before, the military capital for sure, possibly the capital because of its location in regards to the whole of the UK, but also a potential staging point for the invasion of Ireland. So it's a very significant city. Even in medieval times, still held its importance. During the reign of the Black Prince of Wales, Chester was the capital for the Black Prince, and it was also a principality for a time as well. If you were banished from the Kingdom of England, you could still live in Cheshire. Through history, Chester has always been quite an important place.
So through your work then, have you ever sort of worked or met any other famous reenactors or historians, authors, while being in Chester? Because I can imagine there's quite a few people writing bits and pieces.
There is. The biggest one is an author called Ruth Downey. Lovely lady. Had the pleasure of meeting with her several times. And she sometimes also comes up for our Saturnalia parade that we do in the city, which is to celebrate Roman Christmas. She sometimes comes up. And she writes a fabulous book. I think it's called Medicae. I'm not 100% sure on the name. It's been a while since I've read the book. But she does a book from the point of view of a Roman doctor who's in Chester. And the way she describes Chester is perfect for the time. And so if you want an idea of what Roman Chester is like, I highly recommend reading her book. Other authors in this line of work that I've met, you got Ben Kane, Anthony Richards, and Simon Turney. They've come along. They've done bits and works for us. Ben Kane is actually a major supporter of our other company called Park in the Past, which is a company set up in North Wales in a village called Hope, where we hope to build a Roman fort, but also turn a disused quarry site of 120 acres of land into the 1st century AD, and he's a massive supporter of that.
Wow, so that presumably, I've not heard of anything else like that in this country. Is that presumably going to be the first if it does come off?
Well, it has the potential of actually being the first in the world. There's nothing else to be like this. A lot of places in, for example, France and Germany, they do the Roman buildings, they do the reconstruction works, and it's very impressive. But sometimes in a lot of these places, once they build the outer buildings, the insides are done like little museums with glass cabinets. But what we want to do is build the actual buildings, but then turn the inside into the areas that they would have been. So not like a museum, but actually do them as though someone was living there 2,000 years ago.
So presumably then that's one of the sort of big plans for the future. Do you have any other things on the horizon in terms of projects?
Well, that's the major one at the moment, Park in the Past. That's the major one that the main director for Roman Tours, my father, Paul Harston, is working on at the moment. It's a big project. It's going to take a lot of work, but that's the one we're working on at the moment, and it could be a great benefit for the region that we are living in the northwest. Because as I'm sure you know, a lot of things go down to the south, go down to London.
Mm.
There's not a lot of things up north. And so this would put the northwest region on the map.
Oh, fantastic. And obviously somewhere for people to come and visit. So if people do want to find out more about Park in the Past, then is there any particular website they go to?
Well, yes, there's a link onto our website. So if you go into Google and type in www.romantoursuk.com, if you go onto our website, there's a link to Park in the Past, which people can go and look on. Or you could just type in Park in the Past.
So you've obviously mentioned quite a bit about Roman times and things like that. Do you have a particular time period that is your favourite then?
I have 3, actually.
Oh, okay.
Interested in the 1st, 2nd century AD in Roman times. The other 2 are slightly later. So medieval, War of the Roses and the 100 Years' War, and then samurai.
So have you been to Leeds Armories out of interest? They've got a load of samurai stuff there.
I did go, but I was very young, so I think it's definitely a trip to be planned again. When the lockdown is lifted, of course.
Oh, absolutely. So if you could spend then a day with anyone from history, who would it be and why?
To be perfectly honest with you, I can't think of anyone specifically, but I would like to go back in Roman times, and I would like to be able to just walk through the streets and just watch people. I would love to be able to go to like a Roman military camp on the frontiers and actually see the equipment they have, how they did things. That for me would just be perfect. One person would be great to talk to, but actually just going and seeing general life.
Presumably then sort of Chester city centre back then?
Yeah.
Or any particular other location you'd want to go to?
Probably the Eastern Front, Bulgaria, were seeing how that went down, because that's, the Dacians really, really gave it to the Romans there. I mean, they lost several legions, thousands of deaths, and it was, Trajan had to do 2 campaigns to really conquer them. They were tough boys. So apart from Chester, I would like to go back and see there. For me, meeting someone from the past, like if you ask most reenactors this question, they would say, oh, Julius Caesar or Hadrian or some of the emperors. But we know so much about these people thanks to the documents left over from history that it's pretty easy to kind of see their life and how they were living. So that's why I said I'd be so interested to see ordinary people and how it was on the frontier.
So what would you say then, sort of, given the lockdown that's going on, what are your sort of, at the minute then it tends to be obviously sort of sorting out equipment and things like that, getting ready obviously to get back into it once things get back to normal, if we do have a sort of normal then?
The main thing at the moment is, like you said, obviously fixing kit, cleaning for us. It's doing a lot of tidying. But we're also hoping as well that when the lockdowns lifts, that we can get things in place to improve our tours in Chester. So at the moment we're looking into some visual reconstructions to have on tablets as such, so that when we go round on tours and with public, we can go, okay, see the street here? Well, there's nothing Roman here, as you can see, but be able to pull out an iPad and go, here you go, this is what it would look like. While we're in lockdown, we're using the time productively to look into these areas and see what we can do. Imagination is quite hard. Even to some degree, most adults can't imagine what it would look like in Roman times, and it can be quite hard. You see, it's quite hard, in fairness. You say, oh, this tower is X feet high and X feet wide, and most people can't imagine that. Visual aids are always great.
Okay, oh, lovely. Thank you very much. So that's been Kethlin then at Roman Tours, and obviously just want to thank you again for your time, and all the best, obviously, with the lockdown, and hopefully hear from you again soon.
Thank you very much. I hope you have a good evening.
No worries. Thank you, and you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I'd just like to say a special thank you to Kathleen Harston. If anybody would like further information about Roman Tools, then you may contact them on their website www.romantoolsuk.com.